Hello everybody, it's me. Today we're going to be looking at building an iOS widget to tell me the amount of subscribers. I've just finished editing the video and I think this is going to look great. It's quite a long, in-depth tutorial sort of explaining some of the core concepts of Swish UI. So look at the screen here. This is what we got to so far. You've got the widget with the subscriber count, and this is what we're going to get to by the end of this video. So I hope you enjoy and I hope you stay tuned to watch. Let's go back to Thomas from the past, yesterday, who made this happen. Let's start building. So I need to get access keys to YouTube, an endpoint in YouTube that allows me to get the current subscriber count and maybe the current watch count if I want that to be a different widget. I then need to update a widget view, and with those details, this will be valid for about 5, 10, 15 minutes, however often I can make it refresh. And that's sort of simply going to be how it's going to work. Let's jump into it. So on the computer, I'm going to open up a new Xcode project. YouTube sub numbers, YouTube subscriber numbers. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add a widget extension. Widget extension sub. We'll add that to the subscriber thingy, activate that. Let's run that on a simulated device. Let's go down here to iPhone 16. Run that, start that up in a simulator. So essentially a simulator is a virtual environment. It provides this widget configuration intent. This widget configuration intent essentially describes the parameters that we're going to store and the intent values in the widget. You could then expose this to the user if they wanted to edit it or whatever, but we're not going to be doing that. We're just going to make this cache the system. So as you can see here, by default, it generates a timeline. We'll let this load and it'll load. Now this is all done, we can just load the widgets. If we hold down and go edit like you do on your phone, add widget. So sub, YouTube sub numbers. For now, it's just a template. Xcode is bouncing at me because it's telling me it failed to load. You got this. So we essentially want this to show you your subscriber count and maybe the time it was updated. So now that we've got the template code, the way I'm going to do this is I need to get the keys. So I need to either get the access key or the refresh key or just the actual subscriber data. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do all that sort of server side and just provide back the raw data that I need. That way it can be all secure and the keys are not over HTTP request. So on the on my server, I've just opened up what is my random sort of coding project. So I'm just going to put YouTube sub, create PHP for this. If I go to one of these add playlisty sort of things, it adds parameters. We're going to need the API key. We'll get all three of them. So the API key server is a different service we have running that provides API keys to the system. So I'm going to say YouTube view stats. YouTube. So if YouTube view stats, we're going to have this. It's going to take in no parameters because we're not going to input any parameters. But this will be secured behind authentication. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the access key that we have, that you have to get from YouTube, whether that be through the OAuth or the standard access key. We're going to pull that in, and then we're going to make a request to YouTube to get all the statistic information that I need, like subscriber count, watch count, views, all that sort of stuff, and then we're going to return that back to the app with a simple Swift function. And I'm realistically going to get ChatGPT to help me with most of this. So as you can see here, I've imported YouTube. I've got YouTube stats as a function here. I'm getting the YouTube access key from the get API key from Path, which is a part of the API key server system. That's going to provide me with an API key. This API key can then make a query to YouTube. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT because I'm lazy. I don't really know much about YouTube's API, I'm not going to lie. So I need to get my... So I've just said that I need to get my current watch time, my subscribers and all that sort of stuff from YouTube in this function. And I'm going to send it the function and we're hopefully going to get back some code. Okay, so it's going to the channel, the V3 channel API. It's got my channel ID. Why does it need my channel ID? Okay, so what I've got here is just a simple bit of code. So it's getting my API key, and then we're looking up some statistics. You have to put in your channel ID. So maybe we should take that as an input parameter. So maybe I say we want to take channel ID as an input parameter. That way we can take that from the view stats string. So we'll take it as string, and then we'll just take in this here. That way it's returning the view stats. So this is all the statistics. I'm just returning it all here. But actually we're only interested in this view count, subscriber count, which is 582, hidden subscriber count, view count. So we're only interested in these parameters. I might want watch time, but watch time looks like it's going to be a bit complicated. So we'll come back to implementing that later on, possibly. If not, that'll be in part 2. So what we're going to do now is we'll take these statistics information and we're going to just parse that out. So if I just comment that out, we're going to return you back just the subscribers and the view count. None of the other stuff is interested to us. Subscribers, view count. That's what we need. So now we can send this over to the app. So this is coming from my API server. This is all authenticated at the moment. So you've got to be valid user to access these data. I'm guessing technically you could probably get some of this data without an API key. But the way we're doing it is we're doing it the official way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get ChatGPT. So it wrote all this. So I've asked ChatGPT to write me a Swift class to put all the data into a structure so that we can then get it that way. What we're going to need to add is the ability to do the authentication, because it won't have added any authentication headers. But we need to set a bearer header for the token. So this has created that. So let's jump over to here, and in the main application, let's create an empty file and call it YouTube class. So in my YouTube class, I'm going to import this. And as you can see here, we've hard-coded the user value. We'll come back to maybe making that more random later. But at least we're hard-coding it on the client, not on the server. Down here, it wants your token. So I'm going to get the token slightly differently. I'm going to import some... I've got a standard auth library. Essentially, this auth library provides me with the standard implementation of auth that we have across all of the TDS apps. I don't need to show anything in the app. As long as the user is logged in somewhere else on the device, I can just access the tokens. So what I need to do now is say that the number extension, the widget extension, has access to an app group. So I'm just going to say that it's got access to the auth credentials app group, which essentially contains some keys and some access to keychain stuff. So now that we've got this class, I could just say that we want to so when we create this, so when we init, instead of taking in any YouTube stats, I don't want to do that. We're taking the auth token as a string. That'll be the bearer token. So we'll say let auth token, let the auth info equal the auth token saving class, which saves the thing. So it needs a suite name and a bundle. The bundle ID is the bundle of the current application. So for example, in this case, it would be YouTube subscriber numbers. And it also takes in a suite name, which will be group, whatever your shared app bundle is. So that's going to provide me with that. So to set the auth token, we're going to go auth information, get token. Token, question mark, blank. This should get the token. We can now put this token here. Let's do that. So that's then going to send that token off to the system when we make this web request. So, and then we're going to decode it. Let's just print here the decoded. So we can view it down here. Let's very simply just say that we're going to let YouTube init that YouTube.fetch status. That's just simply going to allow me to run this in the application. So I've just very quickly installed an application that has the TDS auth login framework in there that actually presents a login screen. Because we're not going to present a login screen in this, we're just going to use the statistical information. So let's run this now in the iPhone simulator. And we should hopefully see down here in the executable window that it has gained the statistics from the server. There you go. Okay, down here you can see the YouTube stats. I've got subscribers 582 and views of 113,011. Okay, so we're getting that data from the system. Now what we need to do is we need to create a view that looks like a widget view that we can show that in. So either we could do this in the widget extension or we can do this in the app. I'm going to do this directly in the widget extension. We'll create a structure and all that sort of stuff. Let's go over here. So let's create a new empty view and let's call this sub view. This is the subscriber view. So import Swift UI, go for a structure. So we've got this sub view provider. So here you go. I've got a standard view and it's got some text on it. So what we're essentially going to do is we're going to lay out a view body. So what we're actually saying is we want to get in. So I'm just going to get this taking a number. So we'll say sub count as an integer. So in its most simplest form, we could show a formatted string of the value. If we wait for this to load, it now just says 10. But that's not very good. We want to have like a little. I want to have like a little icon and the number. Tell you what, we're gonna add something. I'm gonna add the username of the account. Can we get that? Okay, so what I've actually done is I've gone back and I've expanded the API to return me some more information. We haven't worked this all out yet. But so that I can get a thumbnail and sort of my name and stuff like that. So we can put all that information in the widget. So as you can see now, I'm getting back the title. So Thomas Dye, which is the channel name. The profile image URL, which is the long string for the image URL. Which URL is encoded if we decode it by just removing the slashes. You get my profile picture. So we can show all of that in the widget now, so we can lay it out with name, subscriber count, total, and say that it's the subscribers. So you say subscribers, number, all that sort of stuff. We can do all that in the widget now. So what we're going to do back in this widget, we're going to actually take in this status class. So instead of just taking in a number over here, let's take in a user as a subscriber stat, and then we can say that the user is a knitted with a subscribers of 10, a views of 10, a title of Thomas Dye, and then a profile URL of URL from string, and the URL we just opened being the string. So there you go. Now I've improved the thing. So we've got a structure for the user, and this is going to show the user's subscriber count in still. So what we actually want to do is we want to first vertically stack. So we want a V stack. So I'm going to recreate this that you see in the Create Studio app. So I'm going to V stack. So we're going to say text users dot title. And then we're going to font bold. That puts it in bold. And then below that, okay, so we want to do the alignment dot leading. So if we align the content in this leading, it'll push it all to the left. That way you get a line there. Maybe we will first want to we might have to actually H stack first, because we want to horizontally stack, then V stack, because we want the user's image to be the large thing here. But anyway, below that, we then want the subscriber count to also be bold. Maybe we'll make this as font dot title 2. There we go. And then under this, we want text subscribers.font.caption. Then we want foreground style secondary. This essentially says make it like a light grey sort of secondary vibe. That's kind of recreated this that you can see. But actually we want the icon, so we're going to hstat here, we're going to wrap this, and then we're going to do async. I'm going to async the image. There you go. We've got the image. So we can then... So with an async image, you need to extract the image properties. So as you can see here, I've extracted the image and I've made it resizable, but maybe that wasn't what I wanted to do. I want to set the frame to a width of, say, 50. Resizable.image. Fit. Make it fit within the frame, not fill the frame. If we turn off the resizable, we'll go back to this, and I think that might be better. We're going to remove this width frame so that the frame is there. Well, then what we'll do is essentially we're going to make the image rounded. So we're going to do image round corner. Corner radius is defunct. They want you to map it to a shape. Why have I got two images? That's interesting. There we go. So now we've got the user's image profile image like they've got here, and then we've got the name, the subscriber count, and the word subscribers. Okay, so now that I've got all this, I'm quite happy with that. Now let's go back and integrate this with the widget so that you can see that in the widget view. So if we look at the widget, so not the widget, the widgets, right? So this is the widget configuration. So widget configuration is quite complicated. So looking at a placeholder, this placeholder entry has some configuration parameters. It needs to contain a date because technically the way widgets work is it wants a timeline of what they're going to look like. We don't know what the future timeline is going to look like, so we're only going to provide one element. A YouTube user, which has YouTube statistics. And then for the sub entry view, actually all we're going to do here is show our new sub view, which takes in a user, which will be from the entry.YouTube user. As you can see up here, it's complaining that we've not provided a YouTube user. So here we can say provide a YouTube user that's got subscribers of 0, views of 0, title of test, and a URL that's blank. And if we just explicitly create that, it'll create that and it won't cause us any errors. Down here, it also wants that because they all need to contain a YouTube user. Preview items, I'm just hard coding it. So this snapshot also wants a YouTube user. I'm just going to use these hard-coded parameters that we created earlier. But for the timeline is what's going to produce our upcoming content. We need to dynamically fetch the data, and we're only going to provide one timeline entry. So see here, this code is actually to provide the next 5 hours of timeline. And then we're going to say, so we're just going to delete all this. And we're going to say, so what it's got here is it's got the current date and time. And you have to have the content expire at some point. You can have it never expire, but then the widget will never get refreshed. That's important. So I've just said that the widget will expire every 20 minutes. That means that every 20 minutes it will request new data from the server to show new subscriber data. So what we need to do here is we need to get the current subscriber data. So let's say we're going to let a YouTube class is equal to the YouTube status fetcher. So I've made a few modifications to the way this function was written so that it's async and that it returns back the YouTube stats. So what we can do here is we can say let user equal YouTube class dot fetch users, and if we await that expression in this asynchronous context, we'll get a user back that we can pass in here. Realistically, in this case, we should throw some sort of error saying there was an error getting the user and just show that. But what we're not going to do, we're not going to bother. I'm just going to hard code these parameters. And that way the user is returned to the timeline. And then the policy says that the timeline will be refreshed at the end. Okay, so now that we've got this code written, what we need to do is we need to run it. So let's run it and let's see what we get. So I'm going to run the code. It's building. Okay, so over here you can see that we've got the stats. They don't quite look how we want it to look. It doesn't quite look right, does it? It's the name's really big. The subscribers is like cut off, and the image hasn't loaded at all. Okay, so let's tackle the image first. So the issue is, I've used what's known as an async image. So an async image gets the URL and makes a request. But the way that Apple handles widget is it renders it in the background and then shows it to the user when it's required. Your app is not ran at the time. So async image doesn't dynamically run. So what we need to do is we need to extract the URL and actually pass it in as an image. So let image be a UI image. So here I've got my image, which takes in the UI image, and we could just apply the same configuration parameters so we can make it scalable, scale to fit, and have a corner radius. I can get rid of that. Down here, this will be complaining at me because it wants me to have an image, so we could just say that'll exist. Doesn't really matter if it doesn't. So that's going to create an image there. So what we now need to do is we need to pass that image into the function by downloading it earlier. So over in my image class, I've just written a really simple function. It's complaining at me that I have no UI kit installed, that takes in a URL and returns me a UI image. Regardless of whether there's an issue, it'll throw if there's a problem. So what we'll do is we'll come back over here and we'll add to this simple entry, we'll add let user image be of UI image. Realistically, it should probably be optional, so we'll also say let user image equal the entry dot user image. This is complaining that we're missing that parameter, so we'll say user image. Now it's complaining up here that we're missing passing that parameter in, so what we'll do here is we'll, in this do block up here, we'll say var user image to UI image, so we'll say user image. User image is equal to the try await of YouTube class get image from URL, which is taking the user's profile image. We then pass that into the function. This will be complaining up here that we need to go nil and say nil. If we now run this function, it should simply return the image correctly once it updates. Yes, there you go. You've now got the image and the name. As you can see, the image is a bit big, so we need to resize the image and make it smaller. But we can look at that by looking at this simple entry, and instead of it being this way, we can provide the image we need. So if I download that image from the URL, so here I am on the URL. If I just download the image, and then I go into my assets, I can import the image as an asset, and then we can just use its name to say that there is a UI image available. UI image named this, so that we have the right size image to play with in the view. There we go. We've now got what we got. So now we understand that the image is too big, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so this is a simple entry timeline. So now what we want to do is we want to edit the view to make the image resizable smaller and that the text takes up more space. So I've come over here to the second view, and as you can see down here, I've updated the preview provider to provide me with the widget so that we can understand a bit better about how it can look. So if you had like a system.medium extension, which is like a half a width, that would look perfectly fine. Big, bold, looking good. But actually, if you've got a smaller one, so we can look at the environment here. So if we say for this subview, we actually have a structure where we say small subview small, which essentially takes in all the same parameters and creates me the same thing. So I can get the widget family, so we can just look at the family and we can say if family is equal to system small. Do this, else we're going to return this view that we just created a minute ago. So if it's system small, we want to return this view, which takes in a user and a user image, so that we can make this resize to the view. But if the user decides they want a longer view, it looks fine. So the obvious thing is we take out the image. So if we take out the image, they get Thomas Dye, 10 subscribers, etc. That looks quite good. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this image that we've just taken out and move it into the V stack. Put it above the title where it says Thomas Dye. Put it up there. I've made the image resizable. I've given it some constraints for size. Hopefully that'll help. For some reason it's failing to render this in the preview view. Sometimes this happens, I find that. The best way is just to build it and run it and see what happens. Okay, there you go. This is looking much better. You've got a small image, the name. The name is still a bit big. You've got the subscribers. So maybe title doesn't need to be title 2. Maybe title just needs to be bold. Maybe that'll do it. See, now that's looking much better. You've got a nice view there. I'm not sure what this spacing is all about, but we're clearly doing some spacing around the outside. This still isn't running. But I think that looks pretty good. So I'll leave it here. We might add some more. We'll build some of the other features later on. But thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.